In the middle of the night, with almost no visibility except for the faint glow of the runway lights, Aries Flight 8250 made its final approach to San Andres. After a long 4-hour delay and dealing with turbulent weather, the crew looked forward to finally completing their journey. However, lurking in the darkness was a deadly illusion. Thinking they were safely following the correct descent path, the pilots unknowingly flew too low, victims of the infamous black hole illusion. This dangerous optical deception, made worse by the poor weather conditions, tricked even the experienced pilots into believing they were on course. But in reality, disaster was only moments away. Could they recover in time, or would this flight end in tragedy? This is the story of Aries Flight 8250. In the early hours of August 16, 2010, Aries Flight 8250, a Boeing 737-700 registered as HK 4682, was scheduled for a domestic flight from Bogotá to San Andres Island, Colombia. Originally set to depart at 9:29 p.m. on August 15, multiple delays pushed takeoff back to 11:45 p.m. After a long wait, 125 passengers, a mix of tourists and locals from Colombia, the United States, France, Brazil, Costa Rica, and Germany boarded the aircraft. The crew consisted of 4 flight attendants and 2 pilots. Captain Wilson Gutierrez, an experienced aviator with 7,600 flight hours, had mainly flown turboprop aircraft and was relatively new to the Boeing 737. He was the pilot flying on this trip. First Officer Camilo Galvan, with around 1,900 flight hours, acted as the pilot monitoring. At 11:25 p.m., the flight crew confirmed their new estimated departure time with ground control. Once given clearance, they taxied toward runway 31 right and awaited takeoff approval. Finally, at 12:07 a.m., more than 3 hours behind schedule, Flight 8250 lifted off from El Dorado International Airport. The flight climbed steadily, cruising without incident. The crew maintained regular communication with air traffic control while passengers settled in, some sleeping and others chatting quietly. The journey from Bogotá to San Andres typically takes around 1 hour and 40 minutes, passing over the Andes and the Colombian plains before reaching the Caribbean Sea. The approach to San Andres is particularly challenging due to the oceanic surroundings, with minimal visual cues aside from runway lights. At around 1 a.m., 45 minutes before arrival, the captain conducted an approach briefing with the first officer. They discussed the weather, planned route, landing procedures, and potential issues. The captain then programmed the aircraft's flight management system for the JIGAR 3 Alpha arrival and the VOR Zulu approach to runway 06 at San Andres Airport. San Andres Airport has a single runway, 2,380 meters long and 36 meters wide. Nighttime approaches are tricky due to the surrounding darkness, which makes it difficult to distinguish land from water. The airport uses a VOR DME system to assist pilots with navigation and altitude adjustments. After completing the approach briefing, worsening weather prompted the captain to request an 8 to 10 mile deviation to avoid the worst of the storm. For the next 20 minutes, the flight proceeded without issue. At 1:25 a.m., the crew requested permission to descend. Panama Control initially approved 20,000 feet, but later limited them to 24,000 feet due to other traffic. Concerned about the deteriorating weather, the captain requested an updated forecast. The tower reported that runway 06 was in use, with 10 kilometers visibility, broken clouds at 1,500 feet, and a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. Storm activity was near the airport, but without rain. As the flight neared San Andres, worsening conditions led to turbulence, alarming some passengers. The crew reassured them that the weather would soon improve. The pilots requested direct routing to the JIGAR waypoint and received clearance to descend to 3,000 feet for their approach. At 1:40 a.m., Moments before landing, the first officer lowered the landing gear, activated the auto throttle, and set the flaps for landing. The tower cleared them to land on runway 06, but visibility dropped to 4 kilometers with heavy rain and winds at 8 knots. The pilots visually confirmed the runway, and the captain disengaged the autopilot for a manual landing. However, due to poor visibility, the pilots mistakenly believed they were higher than they actually were. This misperception, known as the black hole illusion, made them descend too low. The contrast between the brightly lit runway and the surrounding darkness created a dangerous illusion that misled their judgment. Compounding the issue, the captain's background with turboprop aircraft influenced his technique. Unlike jets, which require precise landings, turboprops allow for shorter landing distances. The captain aimed for the very start of the runway, a strategy that left little room for error. At 500 feet, the ground proximity warning system issued an altitude call-out. 500 feet. The captain responded, 500 checked. However, as the plane continued its dangerously low descent, GPWS alerts escalated. Despite the warnings, corrective action was not taken in time. At 1:49 a.m., the aircraft struck the ground 49 meters short of the runway. It skidded violently, causing the landing gear to collapse and one engine to break off. The aircraft slid over 500 feet before breaking into 3 sections. Inside, passengers and crew were thrown by the impact. A flight attendant quickly opened the main door, allowing passengers to evacuate. Miraculously, nearly everyone survived despite the severity of the crash. Emergency services responded rapidly, extinguishing fires and assisting the injured. Tragically, 2 lives were lost and many others sustained injuries. Colombian aviation authorities investigated the crash, identifying several key factors. 1. Severe weather. The storm created highly challenging conditions, making visibility and control more difficult. 2. Black hole illusion. The surrounding darkness misled the pilots into believing they were higher than they actually were, resulting in an unsafe descent. 3. Pilot judgment error. The captain's landing approach, influenced by his turboprop experience, was not suited for a jet aircraft. 4. Ignored GPWS warnings. Multiple alerts warning of terrain were not acted upon in time. Despite their experience, the crew lacked sufficient training for handling non-precision approaches in adverse weather. The final report recommended improved simulator training to prepare pilots for challenging approaches and better utilization of technology to prevent similar accidents. Following the crash, safety measures were implemented, including enhanced training on night approaches and adverse weather conditions. These changes aim to prevent similar tragedies and ensure pilots are better equipped to handle difficult landings. Aries. Flight 8250 serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of night landings over dark terrain and the critical importance of proper training, situational awareness, and responding to warning systems. While most passengers survived against the odds, the tragedy underscores the need for constant vigilance in aviation safety.